Euromaxx highlights. Coming up in today's show, Ocean Challenge, the toughest sailing race in the world, gets underway. Big Picture, the very expensive work of German art photographer Andreas Gursky. Screen Aria, the opera La Bohème has been made into a movie. Euromaxx highlights. And here's your host, Robin Merrill.
And a very warm welcome from Berlin. The Enjoy Jazz Festival is self-explanatory, and it takes place every year in the south of Germany, in and around Mannheim, Heidelberg and Ludwigshafen. One of the performers this year was Nils Wülker, a German trumpeter who's really beginning to make waves on the international jazz scene. As soon as he finished his studies back in 2002, he was signed up by Sony Music. Now he's just brought out his third album on his own label.
Nils Wülker's music is funky, righteous, and has a groove that grabs the listener's ear. Here he is at the Enjoy Jazz Festival in Mannheim.
This music is unbelievably intense for me and remarkably liberating. Of course, it's because of the improvisational element, but it's also a type of music that I can put an awful lot of my personality into. Then I simply have the feeling it's my music.
He began with classical music training. At 7, he learned the piano. He got his first trumpet when he was 10. His passion for jazz didn't develop until his teens.
It probably started with the acid jazz wave in the earlier mid-1990s. There were bands like Jamiroquai, Us Three, Brand New Heavies. That was the first time I realized that a trumpet can produce a sound really different from a Haydn trumpet concerto. Before, the music that I played had nothing to do with what I was listening to. I played classical and listened to pop. Just after the acid jazz experience, someone played me Miles Davis's Kind of Blue, and I was electrified.
After finishing his music studies in Berlin, Wülker signed a contract with Sony Music as their first German jazz musician. He made 2 CDs with the label before starting his own recording company in Hamburg. He also tours Germany, playing with musicians of international renown.
Being at Sony was a super way to start. It was a story in itself. I was the first German jazz musician there. But there's more to it than being well looked after and making music. You want to play what you want. Having your own label is extra work, but it's for the benefit of having additional freedom. I can simply make albums how and when I want.
He and his musicians have already been playing together for 8 years, and with his pianist, it's 13 years. He says trusting the band members and their abilities is the secret of his success.
You don't have to talk a lot. I've been writing music for several years, and the guys in the band also know exactly how it should sound. Naturally, when I'm writing, the sound of the band is always in my ear. That means the way that they play influences the way I write. There's an unbelievable amount of interaction.
Young people really like his blend of funky and rocking jazz.
Improvised, exciting, it's really great music.
There's still a highly creative musical potential in Germany.
I think it's amazing. The virtuosity, feeling and sensitivity he plays with, I like listening to it.
Thanks to musicians like Nils Wülker, German jazz is making headway again.
I think the scene is really lively, and everything is moving along pretty well. Jazz musicians are supported better elsewhere in Europe than they are here. But nevertheless, the scene is lively, and there's a lot of good young talent. I don't think there's anything to worry about.
Ich glaube, da muss man sich eigentlich keine Sorgen machen.
At the moment, he and his new band are presenting his latest CD, Turning the Page, on a tour of Germany. And some say Nils WÄ×lker is where it's at. His jazz is fine, gentle, and yet headstrong and modern. The fans in Mannheim loved it.
The Volvo Ocean Race is the most grueling yacht race in the world. Over the next 9 months, the competitors will circumnavigate the globe in various stages. Right now, the yachts are on their way from Alicante in Spain to Cape Town in South Africa. But before they left, there was an in-port race around the harbour area of the Spanish port. These short races are a lot of fun and obviously staged for the spectators, but they do count as points in the final tally, so they're taken very seriously by the competitors.
The world's top sailors are ready to give their all to take their yachts to success. And some 30,000 spectators are on hand to cheer them on. It's an exciting spectacle appreciated by the fans and the competitors.
The amount of people, I mean, you see here, this is crazy, it's wild. This is like sailing is supposed to be. Just that festival atmosphere. You know, the boats are the stars, the people are the co-stars, and I mean, you see it, it's a zoo, it's fantastic.
The city of Alicante has spared no expense constructing an impressive race village in its harbor. It's an arena designed to fulfill all the requirements of the competing teams and to inform and entertain visitors new to the sport.
Both ideas and both spirits join together in that kind of reality that is for everyone, for the technical areas, for the sport areas, and for the normal public that most of the people do not really know the world of the sailing and of the race.
Amateur sailors can try out their skills on racing yacht simulators. Or they can circumnavigate the globe virtually, following the course of the regatta. For the first time, the Volvo Ocean Race also takes in Asia. That makes the race longer and harder than in years past.
The race is hard. I mean, it is so brutal. I'm kind of curious at my own physical and mental levels to get around the world. You know, I want to see how hard I can push myself.
And you go through so many extremes. First of all, it's a very emotional extreme life because you have great victories, fantastic days, you're gaining a lot. The next day you have a big problem with the boat, you're losing miles. Then there is a storm, the next day there is no wind. And you go through this all the time. Very, very extreme motions.
The opening event in Alicante was more relaxed. The first races provided a real highlight for the public. 500 boats full of spectators and a half a dozen helicopters followed the yachts as they raced off the coast of the Spanish city.
The helicopters make it difficult. You can't hear yourself talking on board. The boats are a nice backdrop for the spectators.
The whole circus is nice, but we look forward to when the race begins in a week.
Till then, the 24-year-old German, the youngest sailor in the competition, will continue enjoying the exciting atmosphere in the race village. After the opening races, the sailors and the spectators transformed the Alicante harbor into a huge party zone. Canadian rock singer Bryan Adams was one of the star attractions.
Well, I actually enjoy sailing a lot. My brother and I, every year we used to go out sailing in different places in the world, so I'm very honored to be here tonight with all these great people. Looking forward to seeing everybody.
Adams' concert gave the sailors a chance to relax and enjoy. Shortly before, they bid farewell to life on land and head off into the loneliness of the high seas.
The Imperial Ring is a rather special award given by the city of Goslar here in Germany to someone who has made an outstanding contribution to the arts or society. Its first recipient back in 1975 was the British sculptor Henry Moore. This year it's been given to the German art photographer Andreas Gursky. A lot of his work is what you might call monumental, and it's critical of the effect capitalism and globalization has on our society. Well, he's hit the proverbial nail on the head at the moment then.
Andreas Gursky is one of the superstars of art photography. He traverses the globe in his search for the perfect image. His world of images takes in commerce and consumption. For this show, Gursky has chosen a format smaller than the one he normally uses. He usually produces large-scale pictures, vast panoramas containing incredible detail. Some of his most striking photographs are bird's-eye views shot from helicopters and cranes.
If it's important for the picture, I'll do it. But I don't simply experiment. I know that the altitude is going to get me exactly the effect I want.
Gursky has been digitally enhancing his images since the early 1990s. But for the viewer, his photographs present a seamless surface. Gursky creates a patchwork world, a kind of ornamental constellation. His photographs always seem to hint at hidden depths of meaning, a truth that otherwise remains hidden beneath the surface of reality. Gursky remains fascinated by the masses. Individuals are lost in the crowd. Human figures appear isolated. His visual images are a meticulous choreography of chaos.
They're about a general state of being, not individual feelings.
Individuelle Befindlichkeiten.
Gursky dug deep into his archives to retrieve some of the images, like this portrait series of Doorman, shot in 1982, in the days before digital reworking. Some of the photographs on display here in Krefeld have never been on display before. Gursky does not see himself as a documentary photographer. His images depict a world that is real, but it remains Gursky's world, a highly personal reality.
There's no such thing as an objective view. It's always subjective.
Gursky's photograph 99 Cent became the most expensive photograph ever when it sold for 1.7 million euros at auction 2 years ago. Temples of consumption and piles of garbage in Mexico. The images have made him the photographer of modern globalization. But Gursky doesn't see himself as a social critic.
I'm more like a seismograph, because I understand the real power of photography. Using the photographic gaze to capture our contemporary world, that's a powerful thing. It's not a fiction, not an invention. It's our world today. These pictures help us understand the world around us.
Gursky might be called a kind of photographic painter. His images are composed as carefully as the works of the old masters. In close-up, the images are filled with meticulous detail. But step back to view them at a distance, and they appear monumental. For the first time, Gursky has created a photographic self-portrait.
I wasn't making any progress and almost decided to throw it away. I tried everything, and finally I took the prints that I'd chopped up and put them back together again in the studio, and made the subject of the photograph the process of its creation.
Chopping up the world and putting it back together again to create something new. This is the secret of Andreas Gursky's success. Amidst chaos, he often uncovers the hidden moments of beauty.
This week saw the long-awaited release of the film of the opera La Bohème, starring the dream team of the opera world, the tenor Rolando Villazón and the soprano Anna Netrebko. Of course, the singing was not in question, but both of them had to change their acting style for the cameras. And there were other complications too. We were there at the premiere in Vienna.
The tragic tale of Mimi and Rodolfo is sung by Anna Netrebko and Rolando Villazón in the latest on-screen version of Puccini's famous opera. At the premiere in Vienna, the audience was visibly moved by the opera star's first foray into cinema.
It's been fantastic. We shot for 3 or 4 weeks and it was a very special experience for me, both personally and professionally. I'm very proud of this film.
Director Robert Donhelm, tenor Rolando Villazón and his wife had to walk up the red carpet without Anna Netrebko. She's too busy right now with her 1-month-old baby.
There are very good reasons for her absence. I know she would have loved to be here. Obviously, we miss her very much. She's a superstar and a wonderful colleague. But she's here in spirit and here in the film.
Anna Netrebko's impending motherhood had a big impact on how the movie was shot. It also made for an unusual relationship between what many consider the most passionate lovers in the history of opera. On the set of La Bohème, Rolando Villazón had to woo a pregnant woman.
We were worried that when he had to pick her up or throw himself at her, he'd hurt the baby. But it wasn't a problem. They sang to each other just as passionately, and their interactions were just as heartrending as if the child had been his.
We're both good actors, at least I hope we are. But I shouldn't be saying that. The Academy Awards should say that at the Oscars.
The biggest challenge faced by the opera singers was toning down their gestures, which normally have to be big to fill huge concert halls.
Your expressions, like you're doing in the opera, you know, opening eyes, opening the mouth, it's reduced here to the minimum. But instead of that, you have to put a lot inside your eyes.
That's because the protagonists were often filmed close up, bringing an audience closer to today's most popular opera duo, Anna Netrebko and Rolando Villazón.
First and foremost, it's about mutual respect. They're fans of each other. They look after one another. When one sings, the other one worries for them, hoping they'll hit the right note, because they really wish each other luck. It's very caring, and their concern for one another is contagious.
This film version of La Bohème lives from the energy of its 2 stars. Now, Rolando Villazón is dreaming of a career in the movies.
George Lucas called me. No, it was Spielberg. The doors are open. I'd like to do it again. It was fantastic.
At the after-show party, Rolando Villazón was busy meeting more movie moguls to make sure he gets another chance to shine on the silver screen.
And those were our highlights of the week. If you've missed something and want to see it again, you'll find the programme on YouTube. Until next time, bye-bye.